Good morning, everyone. How are you? Today we will discuss the last lesson in the Unit 3 for secondary one and first term, or the last lesson in this term. This lesson talks about the salts. What are the salts? Where salts are found and how they are formed. Firstly, salts are the most abundant substance on or in the earth crust. They are present as a solid on the earth crust or dissolved in a seawater. Salt formation. Any salt consists of two parts. Positive part called cation and negative part called anion. This part called radical. So the salt, any salt, consists of two radicals, cation and anion. Cation comes from base, so it is called basic radical, while anion is or comes from the acid and is called acidic radical. Okay, to understand this for information, remember that the reaction of an acid with a base produce salt and water. So any salt is a product of the reaction between an acid and base. So one radical of the salt comes from the base and the second radical comes from the acid. For example, this salt which called potassium nitrate. Potassium is a cation or the positive radical of the salt, so it is the basic radical, while the nitrate is the negative radical, so they are or it is called anion and come from the acid, so called acidic radical. We can conclude that potassium nitrate produced from the reaction of potassium hydroxide base and nitric acid. Okay. The chemical formula of the salt depends on, firstly, the acid which represents the source of anion, while the second factor affecting the chemical formula of the salt is the valency of anion and cation. This table illustrates different types of salts and their anion and cation radicals. Okay. This table is found in your box. You can read it and take more information from it. Now we will transfer to another important point, which means the acid can make how many type of salt. Remember that acids may be monobasic, dibasic, or tribasic. Okay, if the acid is monobasic, like this acid, acetic acid, so it is acid only have one hydrogen ion, which can be replaced by basic radical to form one type of salt. While the dibasic acids, for example, carbonic acid, this acid contains two replaceable hydrogen ions. So this acid can produce two types of salts. First type called bicarbonates. In these salts, only when we replace one hydrogen atom or one hydrogen ion, while the second type of salts called carbonate, and in this carbonate salts, we replace the 2 hydrogen ions. If the acid is tribasic acid or contain 3 hydrogen ion, replaceable hydrogen ion, so this acid can produce 3 types of salts. Each type is the result of the replacement of 1 hydrogen ion in this acid. For example, dihydrogen phosphate salts or hydrogen phosphate salts, and finally phosphate salts, in which we replace the 3 hydrogen ions of the acid. How salt formation is done, or what are the methods of salt formation? There are 4 methods for or to prepare salts. Firstly, the reaction of active metal with dilute acids. The second method is reaction of metal oxides with acids. Thirdly, reaction of metal hydroxides with acids. Finally, the reaction of metal carbonates or bicarbonates with acids. As you note now or observe, all of these methods are the reaction of base with acid. As we mentioned before, there are 4 types of bases according to their molecular structures. Maybe metal oxide, maybe metal hydroxide, maybe metal carbonate or metal bicarbonate. Generally, base plus acid produce salt and water. Okay. This is the equation of the reaction of active metal with acid. Active metal, for example, zinc, acid, for example, hydrogen or hydrochloric acid, to produce salt of acid. For example, zinc chloride, and evolution of hydrogen gas. While the metal hydroxide react with acid, it will produce salt of acid plus water. In case of the reaction of metal carbonates or bicarbonates with acid, the salt is formed, the salt of acid, plus water and evolution of carbon dioxide. Here, we can conclude types of aqueous solution of salts. This means what? When you dissolve a salt in a water and test this solution with a litmus paper or with a pH meter, the solution of the salt may be acidic, neutral, or alkaline. How this is come? This is come due to the partners or the source of this salt. If the source of the salt is strong acid and strong base, so they are neutralize each other completely to produce neutral solution. Also, if the salt is come from weak acid and weak base, also they are neutralize each other completely to produce a neutral solution, to produce a neutral solution of salt. The example of weak acid and weak base is produce a neutral solution of ammonium acetate solution, and the reaction of strong base and strong acid, the reaction of sodium hydroxide with hydrochloric acid to produce sodium chloride, which also is a neutral solution, and pH equals 7. But if the acid is strong and the base is weak, so